This video will give you all the information you need to decide if back translation is right for your project. I'll cover the two great advantages the method gives you as a client, what it does and doesn't achieve, and possible alternatives. I'm Dennis Brown, and our company has been in the language translation business for over 20 years. Later, I'll have specific recommendations for when to use back translation, so keep watching. First up, let's be clear what we're talking about. Back translation is the three-step quality control process on the translation you've already had completed. So, what does it achieve? Carried out correctly, it's an effective method of checking the accuracy of a translation. So it's a way of confirming that your finalised translation says what you want it to, with documentation to support that. Now here are three things it won't do. Firstly, it won't assess quality of expression. Now this is important, as most translations need to be more than just accurate. They also need to be well worded and read naturally in the target language. Secondly, it won't identify any typos or grammar, spelling or punctuation errors. And finally, it won't identify any ambiguities in the translation. Now there are ways to mitigate these issues, which we cover in our blog article. Back translation gives you two great benefits. As a client, you probably receive translations in languages you can't personally read. Because you can't judge for yourself if those texts are up to standard, you have to rely on the competence and judgment of others. The back translation method changes all that. It allows you to directly assess the accuracy of a translation for yourself without having to know the language. This puts you, the client, in the driver's seat of the quality control process on the project. Now that's something other methods don't do. So it gives you a direct, hands-on way of managing the risk involved in producing materials in foreign languages. Secondly, we can provide you with clear documentation of all phases of the quality assurance process. This gives you full transparency not only of the steps taken, but also the specific wording we reviewed and the changes we made to the translation, plus the reasoning behind those decisions. And of course you can query anything in the reports you're unclear of or unsure about. Now, two key considerations on any translation project will be time and cost. Back translation is both more expensive and takes longer than other translation quality control methods. In fact, it'll take at least double the time and be double the cost of a standard translation process. That's because it involves a full second translation plus additional time to complete the compare and reconciliation steps. It's therefore not recommended for projects with a tight budget or requiring a short turnaround. So let's summarise the pros and cons. On the positive side, it's an effective way of reviewing translation accuracy. Secondly, it puts you in the driver's seat of the quality control process, which means it can be an effective risk management tool. It's also more transparent than other methods and gives you a clear audit trail. On the negative side, it won't assess other important quality factors, particularly whether the translation is well worded. It also takes longer and is more expensive than other methods. Lastly, the process must be done properly, otherwise it can compromise translation quality. Our other video on back translation has more on this. Here are three other options to consider for your projects. Firstly, best practice in our field involves a two-step translation process, an initial translation by an accredited translator, followed by a full review of that translation by a second linguist. This means that translations you receive from a reputable translation company should already have been reviewed for accuracy. You may consider this sufficient for certain materials. The second option is an additional accuracy check by someone who knows both languages. The advantages of this are that it judges a translation directly, it's relatively straightforward, and it's quick and inexpensive. However, it doesn't provide the transparency and control of process advantages that back translation gives. Thirdly, you could have a technical expert review specialised terminology. They'd typically read through the translation, identify anything that didn't sound quite right or could have better technical wording, and make recommendations. Now, in any translation review, there are key things you need to know and do and traps to avoid. If you're considering it, make sure you read our article first. We recommend back translation in two circumstances. Firstly, when it's a regulatory or procedural requirement. Secondly, for content-critical text where you want an additional accuracy check, and You want direct control over the quality control process, or you want the transparency and documentation it provides. So that's it. Now make sure you head over to our blog article for great practical advice on managing your back translation projects and our free 30-page ebook for download. And check out our other video for a complete description of the 3 steps in the back translation process. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.